Hey there, folks. Happy Samhain or Halloween to you. As a fun fact, when I was in hospital recently and they checked me in and they're asking me if I have next of kin and an end of life plan, and they asked me religion I had. Well, they have a drop down menu and pagan isn't one of the options. So I had to settle for deist or however it's pronounced. Anyhow, we're reporting to you live from the Samhain Chronicles. Now, this kilt has been brought to me. I have a band contract. Now, I've been brought to me. And once again, of course, this is the 31st. This has to be ready for the 8th to be worn on the 11th, Remembrance Day. I've got some work cut out. So what we see here, the number of pleats have burst. And this has been a while since they've had somebody to work on their kilts. And we can see where we have irregularly sewn pleats where they've possibly used, they've used a sewing machine. So I'm not going to have the time to correct something like that, but I will be sewing these burst pleats up. Somebody has run a machine seam across this is the bottom. Actually, this is the bottom of the fell here. Well, no, it's down there now, but they've done that, and that's really unsightly. I really don't have time to correct that. And also, given the estimate that I gave them, so that's not in the books. But I'm going to be resewing all of these fell seams. Now, this fellow has a prominent figure. He's stalwart. He has a bit of a tum. And when I first measured him, he was wearing his kilt under his belly, which is an unfortunate look. So the kilt is long enough to be right when worn at his natural waist, but this is an occasion where I'm going to have to put in buttons for braces, what Americans call suspenders, and sell them a set of proper braces so that the kilt is held properly. Fortunately, they never wear short sleeve order. They're either wearing a coat and a waistcoat, or at the very least a waistcoat, what Americans call a vest. So the braces will be out of sight. They won't be unsightly. I'm going to have to let it out a bit at the waist because he claims it fits. But when you've moved your buckles onto the inner apron, it doesn't fit. These have to go back there, and this apron, simply by unpicking the seams on either side and using some of the reserve of cloth here. There's not a lot there, and there's not a lot there either. But at 42, I only have to let out 2 inches, which means I only need an inch from either side, and I can almost certainly get that just from the A-line that we see here. Unfortunately, we have a bad bit of wear here, and I think this happened because possibly when that seam let go, because this is beautifully sewn. I can see it's beautifully sewn. It's perhaps not quite so many stitches per inch as I would prefer. Let's look. Yeah, you're looking at 4 or 5 stitches per inch. I prefer 6 to 10. So the stitching was perhaps a bit loose, perhaps wasn't a large enough grab, as it were, so that it pulled the yarns out of the cloth. There's a bit of mothing there. The ubiquitous sporin flask pocket. I'm not going to touch that. But when we look inside, we can see why all of these, and I'm not going to count them on your time, but half a dozen or so, why these have let go. Because once again, we have an example of cargo kilt making, and I've mentioned this in the past. I'll include another link to the cargo kilt Wikipedia article, because basically what we have is people doing a procedure, but because they don't understand the underlying principles, they don't get the result, the hoped for result. So here we have pieces of tailor's canvas, which again I maintain is absolutely unrequired for this, because tailor's canvas, its job, what it's made for, is to shape the front of a garment like the shoulder of a jacket. It doesn't have to shape a kilt, because a kilt's under tension, and the kilt being firmly attached or belted on. It's the body that is draped over is doing the own shaping. So you're wasting an expensive resource. And then by cutting it into gores like this, you are absolutely missing the point. So, and yes, we have the generous use of duct tape. Very, very professional. Yeah, so this is going to get a new canvas. New lining, of course. But, yeah. Let me just show you. Here's a new kilt that I've made for another member of that pipe band. Oh, I don't bother with that third buckle because it's really a vestigial, choose your pronunciation, remnant of an earlier time. But yeah, primarily I want to show you, once again, what I consider, this is my method of canvassing that I've invented myself, and I consider it superior. So there, you can try to change my mind. I doubt that you will. Anyhow, so there we go. I've got my work cut out for me. Kids are going to be knocking on the door fairly soon, so perhaps I should change into something more resembling an adult. Yeah, so have a good and safe Halloween. Samhain, whatever you call it. What I call it is Samhain because it's reasons. Okay, I'm obviously talking too much, so it's time for me to make that magic gesture to my cameraman to tell him to stop filming, and we'll carry on.